welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and I am here with the author of a really fun alternate history book, supernatural romance. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. Megan Frampton, welcome to Turn the Page. Let's talk demons and diplomacy.
Great. Thank you for having me, by the way. And I very much appreciate being here and you taking the time to do this.
We appreciate you and your book, which is going to be out in the world soon, right?
Yeah, August 25th. And yeah, which is not very far away. What, a
It's
month?
scary how
Yeah.
close it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, so could you, in your own words, sum up what Demons and Diplomacy is about?
So it is, like you said, an alternate history book where there are supernatural creatures in and out, in and about in the world. And the top supernatural creature in this world that I've imagined is Queen Victoria, who is a vampire, and Prince Albert is a Dampier, which is the lesser vampire, whatever, which I thought was hilarious. And I think that that's maybe it wasn't the start of it because I had the idea earlier. Anyway, what the book's about. This is why my writing is the way it is because I
No,
go on
it's
tangents.
funny. It's funny that you kind of the way that you described it is pretty much the way that I will describe it to people too, because that is to me like the starting point. And
Mhm.
then, people are sort of intrigued by it because I found that to be really interesting as well. And then you're like, oh, right. And then there's this other plot which takes
Right.
place in the context of that.
Yes, yes. So my heroine is a completely normal human, and she is a species ombudsman. So she is someone that is tasked with, hired by the government to keep peace between the various species, because uh, you know, as we all know from many current events, people of different types don't always get along, and it's her job to make sure they do. Because it's kind of a tenuous piece, because if you've got people with remarkable powers and then people with not so remarkable powers, of course there's going to want to be a power imbalance. And so that's her job, is keeping the power righted without causing a civil war.
It was great how much that fit in with Victorian England.
Mm,
So Cora, you had described her job. She's tasked with sort of working with the son of the devil, who the devil is like really kind of like taking some tourism time to sort of feel
yeah,
out this
yeah,
world, which was a fun concept. But his son is like otherworldly hot, pun intended.
of
Uh,
course, yes.
and you know what Cora sort of expects at first is smug and seemingly entitled, but you get to know him a lot more through the context of her work with him. And he's a lot of fun to read, by the way.
Oh, good. Thank you. What I liked about, so this is written all in Cora's point of view, all first person. So we're never privy to Marcellus's viewpoint, which actually was kind of fun for me after decades of writing third person alternating point of view books, because I could just kind of let her translate what he was doing or saying without having to confirm it on the other side. So I liked making him a little mysterious and a little bit of a jerk. Um, because he didn't have to then justify himself in his point of view. Like I didn't have to, I mean, he's the hero, but I didn't have to make him necessarily heroic. Um, and as it happens, he's, perfectly fine. He's just got dubious morals because he's the devil's son. So of course he would have that. So, um, yeah.
What's funny about that in general is, once again, it very much feels like the perfect fit for a Victorian romance. Just,
Mm,
instead of the distant noble man, it's the distant noble
yeah.
demon. But
Yeah.
it was really just sort of fun to just read about, not just how Cora and Marcellus reacted to one another, but just the political world. And you would imagine that with a title named Demons in Diplomacy, there would be politics in it.
Hmm.
There are intersped between the chapters this guide to sort of understanding the supernatural. At what point in your writing process did that come about? And how long did you take sort of building that part of the world out?
Well, that was actually so that because I love writing interstitial stuff. I always think it's really fun. And for that, it was really pretty easy. I just had to, cast about in my mind for what would either be the most ridiculous thing someone could talk about or something very practical, like don't pet a werewolf or whatever. Um, and so that was easy. The book itself was hard to write sometimes, but the stuff in between was really fun because I really love that conceit in other books where there's some sort of weird prim tone to everything, like it's a guide, but of course because it's not etiquette, it's not, you know, manners or any of that or how to live your life. It's more ridiculous. And so I like the juxtaposition of that a lot. And so it was really fun to write. And it was pretty easy.
So what was the hard part then? Because the
Oh,
banter was like perfect and the
thank you.
tone was perfect. I'm so curious because to me, I would have never imagined that this would be difficult for you.
Well, for me, I honestly I'm not much of a plot person. I'm much more of a vibes person, which you can probably tell from the book. But so having to have like an actual plot with, oh my gosh, a big climax scene of what happens and was a little bit more tricky for me to map out. I'd never written anything that has that. Mostly what I've written before, all the conflicts are internal to the characters. And so of course Cora has an internal conflict, like, why am I falling in love with a demon who's going to go back to hell? Um, but the external conflict a little was new for me. Because I tend to write pretty low stakes. And this is much higher. This book has much higher stakes. And so that was actually a challenge and fun, but also hard. And I'd be like, where do I take them next? What are they doing? Okay, I don't know. Let's go
Did
to the
their
Tower of London
did
or
their
whatever.
romance unfold naturally as well as you were writing?
Yes. So of course I wanted it to be like in my head canon of Marcellus, he was intrigued by her right away, but of course couldn't show anything because he's kind of an asshole. Oh, sorry. But anyway, he's kind of a jerk. So
We're adults here. We
okay,
can
no,
say
I
we
know, but
can say what it is.
okay. Um, and so I wanted him to be pursuing her and for her to be intrigued by him, but not fall too fast, too hard. Um, and then there's situations where she doesn't rightly trust him. And I had to make sure that there was a moment or the moments when she would have to trust him to do certain things to bring home the point that she has fallen in love with him, and that he's an okay person, at least in regards to her. I don't think he's an okay person all the time. He's still a demon, but he's willing to toe the line for her.
I would imagine, because I'm getting the sense also that this is possibly a series.
Yes, I just turned in the second book of this. It's set in the same world, and it's got a werewolf and a human, and she's a kind of antisocial scientist, and he's the alpha werewolf of Great Britain, and they're tasked with figuring out the spread of this disease that's affecting everyone but werewolves, and everybody's pinning the blame on werewolves, and so, hijinks ensue.
The world building of it, did you sort of, while you were feeling out Cora and Marcellus's story, did you feel that there was just more to it than just them?
Absolutely. I first thought of this idea in a very different form, maybe 10 or even maybe 15 years ago. I read a lot of, or I love noir. And so originally it was going to be a contemporary noir set in New York City, which is where I live, where people were just out, creatures were just out and about. So I didn't I didn't think of this book as one isolated incident. It's kind of an ongoing thing. And for me, it's unfortunately paralleling a lot of, like I said, current events. I'm pretty political, which is probably pretty obvious in the writing. And so that constant struggle of how does everybody tolerate each other and exist side by side is something that's interesting to me, and something that I feel like I could explore for 10 books if I had to, just figuring out different things, because there's always going to be something that comes up with people in arguments with each other.
This is definitely also a hot time for this type of romance. I
Mm,
think, like, as much as you work that into your story, there's escapism there,
mhm,
and it's fun to imagine these alternate histories. I
mhm.
agree with you, by the way, the idea of Prince Albert being like the lesser demon to Queen Victoria's vampire was like extremely clever when I got
Mhm.
when I got there. Uh,
Yeah.
Early on, I was like, "Oh, this is really different. This is a lot of definitely something I could sink my teeth into, pun intended."
Yes. Thank you. I know I made a lot of those jokes. Yeah. I did like calling the queen an old bat.
Yes,
That
that
just
was
made me
really,
laugh.
really clever too.
Thank you. Um, yes, so what this book does, and it's nice to actually speak it aloud. I've written historical romance now for over 20 years, right? So I know that world. I love exploring other worlds. I don't actually read a lot of contemporary books because I don't really like the real world, and I want to read about those alternate things. And historicals are as much alternate history as any kind of paranormal or romantasy or anything like that, because of course it's made up, and the Duke isn't a complete whatever. And he's got his teeth and he's got his abs. That's just, that's not real. So this was a great place to put, and I love paranormal and fantasy as well as historical. So combining those two things was really fun. It was just delightful to be able to play with stuff. I get, rightly so, I think, I get dinged by reviewers for being a little bit too modern in my language, in how I write. But this gave me the freedom to do that because it's not really, I mean, it doesn't exist. So I did get people saying that it sounds a little bit too contemporary still, but I feel like people just talk the way they talked, whatever the time, and that there's always going to be anomalies. Um, and so being in this world was very freeing. I still had to keep the norms of, Queen Victoria and social structure and all that stuff, but I could play with a lot of the different conceits of historical romance, which I'm not going to spoil it, but that's like a pivotal part of what happens later on in the book, which just made me cackle in joy that I was able to do what I did later on in the book at the Great Exhibition. So there, not spoiling it.
Yeah, don't, because nobody needs that to be spoiled for
Right? No, no, no,
them.
no.
No. Absolutely delightful. Yeah. No, I think you did a really good job of
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank you.
the book in general, like I said, it definitely delves into some of the difficult politics of how people relate and other one another and just sort of like this heightened way that only fantasy or sci-fi can really do.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's also, like I said, like it's also a fun escape.
Hmm.
Um, I think people are really going to enjoy it. I think that the series is going to find quite a lot of readers, and
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes,
I
I hope.
commend you for delving into it.
Well, I hadn't really intended to, like when you talk about the politics, I hadn't really intended to, but that kind of infuses my whole being lately. And I hadn't realized when I'm writing well, actually, all across the board, whatever book I'm writing, my core story is about choice and being able to make a choice, and specifically for the heroines. And so that kind of so having that as my core story therefore naturally rolls out a lot of power dynamics and power imbalances. And so I ended up getting in the thick of politics and stuff without even meaning to, just because I was talking about social dynamics. um, and I'm just going to embrace that and own it, because I believe strongly in it, and I believe in choice and equality and all that sort of stuff. So
Well, thank you so much. I'm
mm,
looking forward to the next installment of this series.
thank you.
And Megan, thank you for joining us. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. Check out Demons and Diplomacy. And we are going to close this chapter.
Great, thank you.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.